Welcome to the school. I'm Jose Caballer, and I talk about the design of business.
And I'm Chris Do, and I talk about the business of design.
Today we have a very special episode. We're going to be answering people's questions. Adam Weil had a really important question. Wanted us to talk about our personal stories. Chris, Can you read the question?
Yeah, so Adam asked, can we talk about our backgrounds, how we got where we're at today, individual struggles, breakthroughs, and greatest lessons. So let's just kick off the show with that.
Sure,
okay?
So let's start about the background. Why don't you go first? I mean, what's your background? Where you come from?
I thought we agreed that you were going to talk first.
Okay, I'll start first.
Okay,
and I'll be short.
So we're going to be short, super short.
So being super short, I'll say this. You know, I'm Puerto Rican. I was born in Chicago. My mom's Dominican, my dad's Puerto Rican. I moved to California because my dad studied public health. Do
we need to check the birth certificate?
Yeah, no, I have a birth certificate. It's like Obama doesn't, but I do. The way I got to Art Center is that I drew a lot and built a lot of stuff when I was a kid. All summers in the Dominican Republic, I would build empires out of whatever. And somebody at church saw me drawing and said, "Oh yeah, you know, you should do it like this." They showed me.
How old are you at this point?
I'm in 11th grade.
Okay, 11th grade. Okay, I thought you were going to say you were 11.
No, I was in 11th grade. I was a junior in high school. Okay. He helped me, and then he showed me his portfolio. He had a friend, Jimmy Chen. It had to be a product design person who showed me their portfolio and said, "Oh my God, you know, you can do other things." After he showed me his portfolio, he said, "Graphic design's where the money's at." And I'm like,
"Really?
That's what I'm going to do."
Wow.
Yeah.
Graphic design is where the money's at.
I think he was going through a career. He was already graduated, and he was seeing that the industry, that product design jobs were harder, that it was easier to do graphic design for almost anybody, like for small businesses.
Okay.
You know, he lived in San Gabriel Valley. Yes, he was of Sino persuasion, so he was in the small business world. So that's why he probably said that.
Okay.
But that got me on track, and I moved to Pasadena.
So you knew you wanted to be a graphic designer.
That's when I discovered. I didn't even know what it was. Actually, I still didn't know what it was.
Right. He just said.
I just heard the money is in graphic design.
Cha-ching.
You see, I'm not evil. Yeah, that was it. And I moved to Pasadena. My cousin Sandra lived there with her husband at the time, who was a mechanic at Mercedes. Anyway, they let me stay at their house for free. I went to PCC. I got a job doing copies at a little copy shop by Uncle Nick's Cockroach Fest. That's what it was, because the kitchen was awful. Anyhow, and I got myself...
Are we looking for sponsors? Because that's not going to help us at all.
It's a little tiny falafel place in Pasadena.
Let's go.
We don't want them as sponsors.
Right.
But, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Art Center was interesting because I had never gone. I spent a year and I didn't go to the campus to visit. You know how people go interview and they interview the staff,
That seems pretty natural.
Right?
It's just down the street.
I had one track, man. That's what I was doing. I was like a bull. I mean, and I even, the summer... before that, my senior year, I crashed my car on my way to my Spanish class, bleeding all over. I show up to Spanish, I aced it.
But what's this got to do with art and your
that I didn't have any money to have a car to do anything in Pasadena, so I worked all summer washing dishes, and I had to walk 2 miles or 3 miles. I was really skinny back then, to the freaking place where I washed dishes.
Right.
Because I didn't have a car, I crashed it in my senior year during tests. So I did that summer, and when I moved to Pasadena, I just freaking hustled. I had 2 jobs. I did copies on the weekdays, and I was a busboy named Jose. That's a huge cliche. At a restaurant in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And on weekends, they let me be a waiter sometimes, and I made more money.
Yeah.
So I did that till 7th term, and then I had a breakdown.
Wait, I'm not following the story here. I thought you were scaffolding towards how you got to Art Center.
Right.
Now you're already in Art Center and you're
working
as a busboy.
I fast-forwarded too fast.
Yeah. You can
the ADD style.
Yeah.
I'm in Pasadena for 2 years going to Art Center, to PCC, working, doing copies. There's a poster in the halls for Art Center minority scholarships. I look at the date and the application. I put a portfolio together. That's the first time I ever went to the campus. And I met Sarah Russin, was actually the admissions director for Art Center at night. And made friends with her.
Sarah.
She's super cool. I know Sarah. Hi, Sarah. She's a really nice lady. Yep. And I remember my portfolio was made out of chipboard. It was like, I made it myself. It's like very DIY. And I got a scholarship for $1,000. Took Intro to Graphic Design with Richard Keys. Then
What percentage of your tuition was your scholarship?
50%. That's when I got into the regular program. But I'm talking about Art Center at night. It was $1,000. It was $800 for the class and $200 for the materials.
Okay.
Then I applied the next semester again for Art Center at night, and I got it again. And this time I took something design principles with this really good teacher. He's kind of like like an ogre a little bit. I forget his name, but he's really awesome. That was more composition and stuff.
We're trying this new thing where we're trying to keep
10
our
minutes,
conversation
keep it
super
going.
short.
Yeah, go,
so
go, go, go. I'm done.
For me,
So that's
the
it. I got
story
to
was
Art
about
Center.
basically once you got to Art Center, you were on your way, right? Basically, it's like once you found the thing that you need to do and the place where you need to do it, you were in good shape.
So in a way, you felt you arrived?
Well, you're on your path now.
Yeah, you're on track.
Right? Because from that point forward, you can almost kind of map it out and see how it goes. So for me, you're going to put me on the clock.
Yeah,
You just
I could
rambled
talk
on for
forever.
10 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's not
That's
good.
cool. For me, I love to draw, and I did that ever since I was, 5, 6 years old. But I never put the two together, that this love for drawing and art and articulating myself through imagery, because words were not my thing, could ever actually lead to something that was financially kind of would hit a standard of living that I thought I wanted, right? So many things kept pointing me to that direction, but I kept blocking it because I was thinking the idea of being an artist meant you're doing caricatures on the boardwalk for people and
That's what my dad
trying
said.
to get 15 bucks.
My dad said, "Oh, you're gonna go paint on Venice boardwalk."
Yeah, I think, and I'm surprised. I always thought this was like an immigrant parent personality, kind of a way of looking at the world. But actually, I talked to people that are third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation Americans. They still have the exact same problem.
What?
I met a really nice guy the other day. He's from Brussels, and he's like, I have a degree in mathematics and engineering. And then I studied graphic design because my parents didn't think that was
I hear that all
a
the time.
respectable thing. And there he is in Belgium.
Yeah.
He's got the same problem as an Asian kid, a refugee from Vietnam coming here.
Art is a hobby.
Same problem.
Art is not a
hobby.
profession.
And the typical thing you're going to hear is, that's plan B, what's plan A?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, and it was a series of random events that led me to this place, and I was working, and I've had every odd job you can imagine, from working as a guy who stocked groceries, and to being the French fry guy at Arby's, dropping
Damn.
fries. I stocked bolts of fabric at the fabric warehouse.
Damn.
I've done every job you can imagine, and each and every single job, while I was doing my job, I was daydreaming. I was not there because I was thinking there
Me
must
too.
be more for me in my life than to do this. So if that's what your job is, that's totally cool. I'm not, for every person, there's a purpose. That's totally cool. But for me, I was feeling like my brain was dying. Okay, so I needed to do something different. So I'm working at the silk screening shop in San Jose, and I'm working there, and he's like, you know what? If you want to do graphic design, you need to go to a school called Art Center. And I was like, no, what's the real name? He's like, no, go to Art Center.
It's a generic name.
What a generic name. He's like, it's in LA. And I knew nothing else. There was no internet back then. I didn't ask for a catalog. I didn't ask for any referrals or references because my boss said, go to Art Center. That became my mission. And the first time I showed up on campus was when I dropped off my portfolio.
Wow, me too.
That was it. So that's how I made my way. I went to San Diego City College for a year, put my portfolio together, and I was fortunate enough, or foolish enough, to apply for a scholarship. Most people are content at just getting into the school. That was an achievement in itself.
Yeah.
I applied for the scholarship.
Yeah.
And just to tell you a personal story, and Mom, I'm going to call you out on this one. I had submitted my application for a scholarship review, but they had sent my portfolio back. And they forgot, or there was a clerical mistake. And so they had called me up and said, we need you to send your portfolio in right now, next day express. And I'm not sure if my mom was just being thrifty or whatever. She's like, just send it, slow boat that thing over. And so they called me the next day and said, where's the portfolio, because we need to make a decision. It hadn't arrived because it was like 2 or 3 day mail. And they ultimately got it, and I was able to get a 50% scholarship right from the get-go.
Wow.
So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a
For me
big deal
too,
for me.
I
because
cried.
It really?
Not cried.
Wow.
Oh, not
Like
cried
weeping,
like
like-
weeping, but like I saw the letter and I was like, oh, I'm so happy. Whatever.
Tears of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. So once I got into Art Center, that kind of set me on my path in life. Yeah, I kept my time short.
No, I
You
mean,
wanna hit
I did
pause?
too. You cut me off. No, it's okay.
I didn't cut you off.
keep
You were
going for
rambling.
an extra 2
Okay,
minutes.
so let's talk about some of the other things. Like, what did you write down?
But no, let's try to like back to Adam Wales.
No, that's what I'm talking about. The struggles, the lessons.
Oh, how we
Let's
got
finish.
there. Okay, so there we go. So struggles and lessons. He might also want to know how we started our design businesses.
Okay,
so
let's do that.
How did he design your design
And
business?
you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start. So and
A
I'll
minute, 60 seconds.
I'll be brief. So I'm gonna clear this. And I'm gonna start it again. So the way I started the Groop, which was
Give
my
me 1
agency, 6 years at Razorfish. So agency, I learned everything. I asked them that I wanted to learn the business, and they said, "Oh, okay." So I asked for what I wanted. I also really, and this is because I was a pastor's son maybe, and I have like all this stuff in my head, you know, like you do things faithfully.
Yeah.
You know, I saw people complaining at how messy it was and at how crappy it was sometimes when they got yelled at by the crazy bosses at the startup. I just did my work, and I did it with a smile, and you know me, I mean, I just did it. And I'm still friends with them. So I got through that, and they were my first client when I left. And I was freelancing, trying to figure at the brewery, which happens to be at the center of everything for some reason here in LA. And I decided to start an agency. I called it Standard Unit at first, and that sounds weird. And we called it the Groop. And then
Well, let me ask you a question. What was the thing that drove you to start the
I wanted to do
company?
it differently. I wanted to do it like a collective.
Well,
I didn't
why?
like working at agencies.
Did something trigger it? Because I know for me, there's something that definitely triggered it.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, why do you want to have your own business? I always knew I would. I like building
So
stuff.
you're there, this kid from Puerto Rico washing dishes while
I knew
going
I
out
would
and you're
have-
like, one day.
Yeah, one day.
One
Exactly.
day.
It's the immigrant story.
It is the
like a
immigrant
cliche.
story.
And for a lot of reasons, you know, you want to make your parents proud. You want to make your grandma proud, your mom.
Really?
You know, yeah.
Because a lot of parents would look at starting a business as super risky. Like, go with the stable thing. That's what I would hear in my head from
You know,
my
and
dad.
I saw my dad attempt it, and
Right.
he was never very successful at sticking to. He was very ADD at sticking to an idea.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I'm the opposite. I'm like a bull. I will stick to an idea and like just go through it until I.
Are we talking about Jose Caballer?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Like I will. If it takes me 3-5 years to do it, I'll do it.
okay.
And it sacrifice everything, which is a little too much sometimes, but you know
Alright.
my point. But so how about you? How did you start? You know.
Well, I too knew I wanted to start my own business for a very long time. I just didn't know what shape or form. So I was freelancing at a place called Novacom, doing broadcast design work, and I was getting a little antsy. I was like, "There's more to life than this."
Yeah.
They offered me a very nice job, and I was thinking about it. At the same time, I got a call from my uncle out of the blue. He's an attorney, and he said, "You know, my business partner and I, we want to start a design company. Is this something you want to do?" And I said, "Yes." So he said, "You know what, we're going to be in Los Angeles. We'll meet you at the Westin Bonaventure, I believe, downtown, and put together a business plan." I didn't even know what a business plan is. So I asked my roommate at that time, because his dad is in investment banking, what do I need to have for a business plan? He gave me this long list over the phone, and I started working on it. Looking back now, it's a complete joke. I wish I had
Yeah.
it, because we could all sit around and laugh at
Yeah.
what kind of piece of junk it is.
Yeah.
I was staying up all night working on this thing, typed it up, printed it out, went to the meeting. We were having dinner, so he said, "Okay, you want to start a design company?" I said, "Yeah, here's my business plan." He glanced through it briefly. He says, "So what kind of money do we need?" And for some reason, I had this number, $100,000 in my mind. Let's start the company with $100,000. So over the course of dinner, he said, "You know what? Here's a good faith gesture. Here's a check for $5,000 on the spot." And to me, that's a lot of money, $5,000.
Yeah,
And considering like I'm $5,000 in debt, it kind of matches up really
Yeah,
nicely,
yeah.
right? He signs a check and gives it to me. I'm like, okay, great. Put it in. I go home, I pass out. That's the beginning of Blind.
Damn, I didn't
That's
know
the
that
story.
story.
Yeah.
I just knew you as some guy like bald Asian guy at Blind, you know, who was always doing stuff, and I really looked up to.
I had more hair back then.
Huh?
I had more hair back then. Are you talking about me or are you talking about somebody
I'm
else?
talking
Okay,
about you.
okay.
And
That's a long time
I
ago.
remember visiting you at the brewery, and I even stayed at your house for a few days, which you didn't even remember, because we have a lot of friends in common. And you weren't there. I don't even know where the hell you were.
Probably
But-
Seattle.
Yeah, you were in Seattle. But I went to ask you questions. I remember you wouldn't lend me stock CDs. I don't even know what I asked for them. And you got me a lot of.
Stop trying to steal my stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Alright,
But I remember that, and you always were kind and you always gave advice.
I love the way you
shared.
said
Kind.
Gossip.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the point is that I admire that, and I think neither of us, but I'm going to speak for myself. I just can't imagine myself being employed. I liked working at Razorfish, and I like working for my clients and doing everything that I need for them. But I'm impossible to manage. Well, you know me.
You're not impossible to manage.
Well, but you know my
You're
point.
difficult to manage, but not impossible.
No, but the point is that. But so here's a question: struggles.
Wait. I want to speak to that real fast. I can see myself working for people. I have worked for people.
Me too.
So here's how my brain works. I'm 100% in charge, or I'm 0% in charge. I'm not great at 80% in charge.
That's a problem.
Okay, so I can be the best support guy. Like if you're the director, I can be your best first AD or whatever it is. My ego doesn't get in the way. Okay, I don't mind doing, I can cut mats for you if that's what you want. and my brain can flip that switch really fast. So
How does this relate to struggles and to lessons?
well, it doesn't relate to struggles just yet. I was just talking about this thing. So when I get into positions where I'm 80% in charge and that 20% of ambiguity, and there's a saying, we all know this, if everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge. And so that's where I get really kind of weird. All right, so I want to either be in charge or not, because I don't want to act like I'm taking on the responsibility without the authority to execute what it is I want to do. And maybe that's something, if you recognize that in your own head, at least just from my point of view, maybe it's time for you to start a business. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So your personality behavior or assessment in the DISC assessment, which is you guys can Google it, DISC, D-I-A-C, is dominant. Mine is influence. So and I've seen us lead, and we lead exactly that way, which is great. You have to be in charge or not. It's binary. I do influence and I do circular. Like I get everybody to align, and I'm not even.
Like we hold hands.
Yeah, exactly. I'm leading by by influence, not by dominance. But
Okay.
what's interesting, and going back to the struggles, one of the things.
Well, let's do struggles, right?
I struggled a lot with. Well, here's a.
Let's
couple
go
struggles.
one at a time. We'll just ping back and
Yeah.
forth because it's not been a smooth ride by any chance, by any stretch of the imagination.
It's been
at least
extremely
for me.
difficult,
Let's
very
do it.
difficult.
Okay,
And then there's a lot of financial things. So
Give me
I
your first struggle.
I struggle a lot with kind of having to do some of the financial things and the numbers, and I've gotten better at that. But then you use advisors and
What do you mean? I don't know what that means. Struggled with the financial aspects, like
with having to put okay, that's not necessarily true. Accounting and all the things that people struggle with in setting it up. But what I learned soon enough was that sales fixes all that because you get money to pay people to do it and to help you. But and it isn't about the managing of the money. It's about managing the decisions. Remember, ADD, you see everything on the same priority. So budgeting and prioritizing things becomes challenging. So even when I was growing the group, that caused a lot of our challenges. Instead of like saving the buttload of money we were making, I used it to expand and to grow. You know what I mean? Which is
so you're not good at managing money. So what you're saying
Right.
to me?
Right.
Okay, because you'll burn it all.
Correct. It's
All
like
right.
burn Rome.
So
And-
that's a struggle for you?
Well, I need to learn I've learned, and I'm learning the discipline that the entirety of everything you do has to start with that. It has
So
to
did
start
that
with
lead
discipline.
up into your kind of first painful lesson?
I think so.
Tell me about a failure.
Here,
I think
it's
we
a
can
huge
learn
failure.
more about our
I
failures.
overexpanded the group aggressively, and I focus on people.
Give me some details.
We were doing a good amount. We were doing startups, all startups, and between the startups in New York, the startups here in LA, $400,000 or $500,000 projects, in aggregate. You have 5 or 6 of those. You stack them on top of each other, and you're beginning to get some decent cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
So we're
is
talking 2 to 3 mil at that point in aggregate.
4
4 or
more,
5.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to do the math.
Yearly revenue for that.
Right.
That's 2000.
Right. So you're doing about 4 to 5 million gross.
Yeah.
And what did you do with that?
So I used it to hire more people, to hire
Right.
like business people, because by my fear of like not the business stuff, I overcompensated, and why do I need kids who are MBAs making 80 grand? I mean, I don't fucking need that. I mean, I needed to hire one person with experience in the agency business to take me to the next level. But here's the two sides of the sword. Had I done that, I would have grown the business better and bigger, blind style. But the decision I made had me see a whole new world, because I was doing startups with kids doing the strategy with me and learning. I learned a ton about how not to be a design firm. I was running a consultancy. I was running a McKinsey. And clients said this. They're like, wow, we're really surprised. We got more than what we thought. We got business strategy. We got product development strategy. We got design. We got identity. We got naming. And they were paying very little. The agencies are paying $1 million to do all that work. And I'm doing it in a small ragtag team, like a startup.
You know what? I want you to focus on the failures a little bit more.
Okay, more
Because
failure.
it felt like as a map.
It went from failure to
It went
success.
like tick-toonk. It's like
That's
come on.
also part of my personality. I
I
actually
know.
take
So
the failure and I say, what was good about it?
Let's spend some time.
That's my lessons.
Let's
So, here.
dwell in that moment.
Simple one. Let's dwell on the pain.
Yeah.
Let's dwell on the pain.
Talk about the pain.
In order to expand,
Because I'm not hearing it.
we
from
were
you,
we were smarter than everybody else. One of the things that they tell you in business is don't get credit lines from more than one bank, so that you can manage one relationship.
Yeah.
We were smarter, in the hubris than the advice, and we got 3 without telling the banks. It's like dating 3 people at the same time. And when the shit hit the fan in 2008 or 9, whenever it was, I think it was 8, suddenly you don't have the same cash flow.
Okay. So
But
you got these lines
still
of
have
credit,
your credit obligations, yeah.
right? And so you're drawing these down in anticipation
Just to make
of what?
just to make the payroll, right, and cash flow.
Okay.
You're using them as a
Revolving credit.
revolving credit line.
Right.
They were for a year. They were we take it out, put it back in. We took it out, we put it back in. But when the shit hit the fan, suddenly you have it out.
Okay.
Boom.
Let's take a moment here because a lot of people listening may not understand or watching what a revolving line of credit is and what it's supposed to be used for, and maybe how you may have not used it properly or improperly. I don't know.
The bank gives you cash based on your revenue. They look at your numbers and they look at your banking records. So you have
They
to show
set
them
aside
12 months of banking records.
A guaranteed amount of money for you
Yes.
to use,
Yeah.
and usually how is this used?
So for an example, you get paid by clients on 30 days to 60 days. So even if you sold a $500,000 project, you have 4 payments of 100 whatever and 125.
Keep it simple. Keep the numbers simple.
Yeah, keep it.
Let's say the client, you booked a job for $100,000.
Yes.
And they have four
4
payment
payments of
cycles, so you're going to get $25,000 at the beginning, but your overhead to run the job
It's $50,000.
Is $50,000.
Yeah, you need
so you're
that.
going to draw the 25 in anticipation of being paid the other 25, or the 75 actually.
Right.
So where does this go wrong?
Oh, in my case, it was really
Did some of your startups default?
yes. A lot of the startups, when startups were not a stable client base in the scenario that happened in 2008, because one of the VCs, John Doerr in Silicon Valley, wrote a blog post saying to all his CEOs, or they leaked the blog post of an email that he wrote: "Shut the batten down the hatches. Stop spending now." So we had a lot of startups that didn't pay us their bills. That's it. So you have $500,000 of receivables
So
that you don't get paid.
You,
Actually, it was
you
more
probably
than
made
$500,000.
one of the
more than
classic mistakes of any business is you basically finance your clients. That's what you're doing for at zero interest. This is where the business of design comes in.
Yeah.
So for us, our payment terms are something like this. When we book a job, we say we're going to take 50% before we start. And if we run our jobs well, our margins are somewhere to say, between 15 to 30% net, right? So before the project delivers, we're collecting another 25%. So at that point, we've been paid 75%. And what we're going to say is now the remainder is net 30. So that's basically our profit. So we've covered our hard costs. So the reason why I say this is because we have a line of credit and we've barely used it. I had a meeting with my Wells Fargo banker, and he's like, "Are you ever going to use this?" And I keep thinking, not if I do my job. If I do my job, I never touch it.
Right.
Right? Because I'm not going to extend credit out to my client for 120 days. I understand in manufacturing, this is a really big deal.
Factoring, yeah.
Factoring.
They use it all the
That's
time.
what it is, because you get a purchase
I was
order.
factoring my clients.
You were
yeah.
factoring, but you're not a factory. You're a service.
Well, also, you don't have the visibility to the risk. We were kids. We were thinking we were going to keep on growing and we were going to be huge.
So that's a big mistake that you've learned from.
And here's the thing. Solving something like that is pretty big. So I got on a plane and went to New York to meet with one of the startups, and I didn't manage to get him to pay us the amount, but I managed them to invest. The investors in the startup actually invested in the group, which was cool. It shored up my cash flow, but it wasn't cool because I was just prolonging the inevitable, which was death.
Okay.
If I didn't actually change the business.
Right.
And then I also negotiated with some of the other people that owed me and captured a little bit of it, but I decided to save the relationships. Instead of going to court for the amounts, I said, you know what, lay all the people off. Jeff Dotches, who was the founding CEO of Razorfish, I called him, he walked me through. He did the PowerPoint with me on how to lay off most of the team. The advisors play a huge role in that. I met with the banks, I met with the CEOs, I gave them my word that I would pay them, and I did. It took me time. So the first credit line, I paid it within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I had so many meetings. And this is during the financial crisis. Shit is hitting the fan left and right. The news is awful. The banks are I walk into the bank, the FDIC's there, and everybody's oh my God. And
the shredder's going.
the shredders are.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. In the middle of all this, my personality and what I stayed completely calm, exactly how I was at Razorfish. And I focused on the relationships. So Peggy, the woman who worked at this bank, and I, we went to lunch and coffee. I saw her the other day at a restaurant, and it was funny to catch up. But anyway, the point is that I focus and manage the relationships, and that's what got me through it.
All right. I'm glad we're doing the short version of this because I think it's
We're
going to be
20
a full
minutes in.
30-minute
We're 20
episode.
minutes in.
All right.
30-minute episode. Yeah.
All right.
We're 20 minutes
do you
in.
have any other lessons that you can tell in a much shorter way? We'll
I'll
focus
recap
on you
them.
because
We'll recap them. Look,
before we get to me.
Build the relationships. Focus on the relationships. That's what I did. Don't overexpand. Be Chris Do. You know, like you have to be a mix of Chris Do and Jose Caballer. You have to be able to take a little bit of risk.
I don't know what that means.
A little bit of divergent and convergent. Like take a little bit of risk, but really mitigate it. Take a little bit of risk, but mitigate it. Take a little bit of risk and mitigate it.
Is that called calculated risk?
Yes, it's called calculated risk. This is the diagram for it. It's like convergent and divergent. You have to flip between them.
I hope that makes sense to somebody. Okay.
What
What
else?
else?
To analytics.
Any other kind of failures or mistakes?
One thing that my ability to manage and to deal with a lot of these things over time, focus on developing yourself, not the business. I thought that it was about training and education for my business, and I realized I'm the most important part of my business if I'm the founder. So health mattered, personal training and development mattered, and a lot of my mentors kind of guided me and coached me through that. You'll notice that if you go out there and you do shit, you do stuff, people will notice, and they'll help you. They'll give you input. They'll push you along. But if you're not doing anything and you're not like, and it's interesting. Why do you do stuff? Like we kind of got your motivation, but I'm crazy. You're not. Maybe you are.
Maybe.
So tell me a little bit about your lessons and the things that you struggled with. I'm curious.
Personally, speaking very bluntly, I've never made a mistake. Now, if anybody ever tells you
That's a good one.
It means that they've never tried anything new.
Right.
They're just repeating the same old model over and over again until that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So I've made plenty of mistakes. So I made the foolish mistake of starting a company less than 6 months out of school, no clients, no portfolio really, no professional portfolio, no real experience in doing the work, no way to bid the job. So people always ask me, should I start a business? And I'll ask them, how much experience do you have? And I'll tell them, do not do what I've done, because it's been a real struggle. And what people don't understand is, in the first couple of years, we were doing jobs for like literally $500, and I was spending the night watching the render queue, sleeping on the floor next to the Mac tower.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing, the Quadra 700,
Wow.
I believe.
That's
So
OG.
back then, one frame of film resolution title, just moving typography and doing a motion blur, directional blur
like an
across
hour.
it, took an hour per frame.
Wow.
That's what it took. So
That's awesome.
you were sitting there babysitting 24 credits and just doing one simple move, 2 pieces of type moving across. So made the mistake of
So how did you overcome that?
having no experience. So
how
what
did
I
you
started to do is I asked lots of questions. And the best thing that you can do for yourself, whether you're a student, an instructor, if you're a parent, is to ask questions, okay? So I started calling around and asking people, like, how do I bid a job? Because I feel like it's just magical at this point. I would put together a bid, and it'd be a couple of pages long, and I would write like line item A, design, and then logo round 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it might be. I'd break it down in phases, and I would sign an arbitrary number to it. It was literally like that.
You're making it up, yeah.
Just making it up because I felt like I wanted to be paid $5,000, $10,000 on a job.
Yeah, that's how I
I'd
did
break it up and kind of make it look like I put a lot of time and thought into it, which I did, but I had no scientific way of doing it. I brought in a freelance producer, and she showed me this is how you do a bid. And it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it takes into account how many people you think, what kind of resources you need, what
Resource
kind of
allocation,
hourly rate. And I didn't realize at that time, I thought I was making money, but I was just a glorified freelancer.
Yeah, you were actually doing it at cost. I
was just
noticed
getting
the
paid.
same thing.
I was just getting paid. And a lot of people think they have a business.
They don't. They're
don't.
self-employed.
Until you can pay everybody what they're worth and make money on top
And
of
have
that.
profit on top
you
of it.
really don't even have a business.
We got to stop there. That is a huge lesson.
You cut me off already? I'm
Yeah.
a minute 30.
No, we can keep on going.
Okay.
But here's the other thing I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
So how did you decide on the producer? Because I did the same thing. I was making it up, and then I hired a producer, and he taught me how to do it.
Okay, how did I decide on a producer?
Well, you needed it. You knew you
I needed
it.
it because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, got it.
So we were just kind of guessing at best. And so she came in and she was super professional. She came in, she did the thing, and she didn't even charge me any money. This is the beautiful part.
Nice.
Because in our world, producers bid on projects for you all the time. It only takes them an hour, most 2 hours if they know what they're doing. And then the idea
They
is
might get the
if
job.
you book the job, you bring them in and they get paid their rate. Right? Which is a nice rate, and they pad it a little bit, so it's fine.
And people should know that you can actually ask people to help you in that case scenario.
It's built into the model.
It's built into it.
Yeah.
I brought in a producer to help me bid a job that I was underbidding and that I was going to seriously screw up if I took it. And he taught me how to do it, how to bid it right, how to make money from it, and I did. And it wasn't that you made a huge amount of money. It's that you made a profit, period, and that you didn't lose money. Because I was good at losing money on the jobs.
Apparently.
Because I give the client everything.
I know. That's why you're not running my projects. But okay, anyways. Let's talk about bidding, because I want to point out a few key things for those of you guys that are out there, whether you're a one-person shop or a multi-person shop and are looking for a different way, and I'm going to disclose this. So we're going to bear warts and all, like all the dumb, stupid things we've done.
Keep in mind, we have a timer going. But
I know you keep in mind what I'm talking about. Okay. Anyway, so here's the deal. So what you have to do is you look at, the way I like to do is you look at the calendar and you look at when it's due and when it initially, or the concept of when it's supposed to award, right? So then you break that down and you look at, well, how many days of editing, animation, what do those people look like? So you just mark it down on the calendar. It's very easy to see that way. And so you're kind of designing the framework of the project with milestones.
You're
and
designing the
checkpoints.
project.
You're designing the project.
Yeah.
And then basically the producer, they'll punch in all those numbers. So let's just say Johnny comes in and Johnny's a $400 a day. Let's do $500 because it's easier. $500 a day. The rate that you should show has been marked up because you'll almost always classically underestimate that.
Yeah.
I would do like 1.3x. You know, not quite double. So it's like, it'll be like 800, let's just say, or something, whatever.
That's a markup.
So it's a markup. And then I realized, too, you have to charge for the machine and all the things that go into making that work. So a lot of people don't think about this. You bought a piece of hardware that's going to be completely outdated and irrelevant in about 2 years. You put software.
There's a 20% extra for that.
There's something, so I put in,
30% markup for the resource, 20% for
whatever dollar amount I want to put in per day to do that.
Okay, so you're renting the equipment.
You're running it all, it's time, materials, all that kind of stuff, estimated out. And then when I was done back in the day, I'd add all that up. I would add a creative fee because I never just wanted to charge for the time being done. Because if I can do the job really well, as many people as I can throw on it, it's worth more than that. So then I used to put in a creative fee and it was arbitrary. Sometimes I'd put a $30,000 creative fee and clients never even asked. And then I would mark up the whole thing, 30%.
Yeah.
That's my profit. So in that also is creative direction time, project management, project coordination, any books, resources, lunch, anything that you use to touch this thing.
Did you read any of those books? Like
No.
There's a IA like pricing guide.
Nope.
So you
Like
learn
the AIGA pricing guide or
AIGA doesn't have a
practice
pricing
standards,
guide.
okay,
No.
something like that.
There's another one.
Maybe they need one.
They could. That would be.
Okay.
It would be great if we read
All right.
one.
Let's
I
talk.
mean, but in digital pricing is different. I don't want the episode to be about pricing. It's really
Right.
about lessons. Look, here's the biggest lesson for me. The biggest lesson, and for Adam and for anybody that's struggling through it. At the end of the day, we all struggle with doubt, with mistakes, with things that explode. You get depressed about like failure, and then you get happy again. All these kind of things. But it's you. Somebody asked a question about integrity. Like, can you
Who's
do
that?
business?
Somebody-
The question about
let's-
integrity was from it was
Attribution.
360 Brand Lift.
Okay, 360
on
brand
YouTube,
lift. I met him.
Can you make money and still keep your integrity? A lot of people struggle with that. I see designers and look.
Wait. Before, is this about struggles and mistakes, or are we moving on? Because
Yeah,
I feel like, to be honest,
we're gonna go into.
I
another
was just
episode.
joking that I never made a mistake. I've made so many mistakes from how to
But
do
that
a
should be its
call.
own episode. That should be its own episode. We should
Okay.
have an episode of just mistakes.
So are we teasing that
Mistake,
right now?
go. Yes, we are.
So should we wrap up here then?
And do a mistakes episode?
Yeah, if you guys want to know more about mistakes episode, then we'll do that. And I could go on about having the wrong culture, understanding what a sales pipeline looks like, how to ask for a sale, how to close the sale, and all that kind of stuff.
Let's do it.
And I'm going to talk about everything I've done wrong, and I can just go on and on and on.
So let's do mistakes.
Because it's easy to look back at somebody and say, look, you've been able to do this, but we've made a tremendous amount of mistakes.
Got it. All right.
Another time, another place?
No, the next episode. So
Okay.
the next episode, guys, we're going to talk about mistakes. Do us a really huge favor. First of all, subscribe right here somewhere. Tweeter down here. In the comments, there's also links to our Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Chris needs 1,000 followers, and he's doing it the hard way. So please,
I'm earning it.
you're earning it.
I'm earning
He
it the
wants to
hard
be
way.
celebrity style. So follow us on Twitter and let us know what you want to get out of what we do here. We are very eager to know what your needs are and what's happening out there. And just say hello. All right. So thank you guys very much. We'll see you guys next week. So let's
All
talk
right.
about mistakes in the same. I just changed it. No, I do that.
You took my line.
I took your
You
line.
freaking wanker.
Okay, do it again.